Hi, Fix-It Scotty here, and this is my wife's 2020 Toyota Highlander. And in this video, I'm going to be installing a front and rear dash camera so that while she's driving, it can record everything happening around her on the road. The kicker here, though, is that even though it's an aftermarket product, you will swear it looks factory OEM installed. So stay tuned to see how I do it. Well, a couple of months ago, I did a video where I installed a dash cam on my VW bus, but then I realized that my wife drives way more than I do for work, and she really needs one on her car. Well, this product right here, which is a replacement rear view camera and backup camera, would not have made sense to install in her newer car. Her car already has a backup camera, which is integrated into the media system, and a rear view mirror with integrated home link buttons. I didn't want to touch any of that OEM installed hardware. So this product wouldn't have worked. They also make aftermarket dash cam products where it's like a suction cup thing that you can stick to your windshield. The problem with those is they're ugly, they have a power cord that has to run to a cigarette lighter, and they're also invitations to thieves because they're easy to just swipe. So I didn't want either of those products. So I think I found the right product for my wife's car, and it's made by a company called Mangoal. Go to mangoaltech.com and search for your car's make and model and see if they make a product for you. The front camera is a pretty high quality 4K resolution Sony chipset and 150-degree viewing angle. The optional rear dash cam add-on has a 1080p resolution and a swivel to where you can dial in your viewing angle on that one too. So this is the product that Mangoal sent me, and I want to thank them for sponsoring this video. So let's check out what's in the box. All right, well, let's look at what's in the box here. Now, before I open the box, there's a sticker on the side because these things are very much customized to your model of car. You want to make sure you got the right product before you start ripping into it. So as you can see, this one is for the Toyota Highlander Hybrid, and it's the 2020 to 2025, and mine is the 2020. So I've got the right kit. So let's go ahead and see what's in the box. Okay, so not a whole lot here, but let me go through some of these components here. First off, we have the main head unit, which is the front dash cam, and this is in the plastic shroud that we're going to replace right behind our OEM rear view mirror, and that's the way they make this look OEM, is by replicating the plastic shroud that is already on the car. And then there's some clips for that. And then there's this wiring adapter. Now this is very helpful too. Some of these dash cam products will make you have to do complex wiring where you have to run wires down to behind your dashboard and into fuse boxes. But this is pretty cool because what they've done here is they made a harness for the existing OEM harness that's behind here that wires off of all the existing wiring and gets the power and everything needed for our unit by just plugging this in without us having to deal with fuses and complex wiring. And then we have the rear camera, and what you're going to see later is that the rear camera is where we're going to spend most of our time in the installation. This is the hard part of it. Now this kit can come a couple different ways. You can actually buy the kit that's just the front cam without the rear camera. The installation of this might influence which one you want to buy, but I think it's very valuable to have both, so we do have the rear camera here. Then we have a instruction manual here. Now, I kind of thumbed through it a little bit. It does not go into a lot of detail about the actual hardware installation, so that's why this video will be very helpful for you. What it does do is it focuses on the smartphone app, because this hardware here has settings and configuration on it, and there's no real user interface for it. So the way you set and configure, and not only that, but also you can export clips off of it, is by using this smartphone app. And so the details are in here, and I'll also cover it in this video. We also got a little installation tool here, just a plastic tool for prying away panels. I have another set of tools I might be showing you in the video as well, but make sure that you don't use metal or screwdrivers or picks on your headliner or the plastic pieces that I'll be showing you because they'll scratch it. So we either want to use plastic tools or our fingers to do all the installation here, no metal tools so we don't scratch anything. And then finally, I was surprised to see that they actually provide us with a micro SD card. So this is what stores the video clips while it's recording. My last dash cam setup did not include the SD card, and I had to go purchase my own. This is probably about a $25 or $30 value, so keep that in mind if you're comparing other products and dash cam products, that this one actually provides you with the SD card. So now that we've verified we have the right kit and we have everything included that we need, let's go ahead and install it in the car. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is remove this plastic plate thing that's on the windshield part right behind our rear view mirror here. So the best way I know how to do this is up by the top where it meets the roof. You can jam your fingers up in here and you're gonna push down on it, down this way, and it should free it up a little bit such that your fingers can now get inside of here. You'll notice that inside in this plate, there's another plate inside of it that kind of goes around the mirror here. You'll see that body line right there. And so what you're gonna do is once you get it down a little bit, you're gonna put your hand back in here and hold it on this side here. Sorry, it's hard to see. And you're gonna pull out. Notice I pulled out on that. And then there's one more tab on the other side, again, holding it in place and then grabbing it and pulling it down. And you'll notice that I pulled it out. I'm able to pull this piece out. Notice that the tabs on either side, like I just showed you, and that will allow this plate to fall right out. Okay, so now that we have our cover plate off, this is our original one. Here's our new one that includes our new front dash cam. What we're gonna do is we're gonna flip them over. Notice the tabs on the old one. We got new ones to put on our new unit. So let's go ahead and using the old one to determine the position of them, we'll put the two new tabs on our new unit. There we go. Okay, and then what we're also gonna do is we're gonna take off the center plate here. It's a little bit different than the one on our OEM plate. What we'll do is we'll just kind of pull these clips apart here and then pop out the center section just like we did on our old one, and now it's ready to install. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our wiring harness that we were given and we're gonna go ahead and install that. What you need to do is unplug this gray connector right here, and you do that by pushing in with your thumb on the little tab, and then you can pull it right out. There's a female section of this harness, and that's what this will plug into. And then the corresponding male section right here will simply go back into the original position here. So we'll plug that back into this unit. And we can just kind of tuck the wires in like that. And here's the wire for our new unit ready to go. Okay, so now what I've done is I'm locating my real long rear dash cam connection cable, and I'm gonna find the end that goes with the rear cam connector that's in our front dash cam piece, and make sure that that's the end that plugs into there. And we're gonna grab that, and then notice up here on the headliner, up by the roof here, you see how there's some perforations in the headliner? We're gonna pick one of those holes there, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna start tucking this cable up into the ceiling headliner, and we're gonna have it come out this perforated hole and have it like 4 or 5 inches kind of sticking out into here. And I would show you how to do this on camera, but because it's a tight space, I need both my hands and I can't really film. I'll bring you back in to show you an example of this. All right, and there it is. I've just brought it through that hole there. Basically, all I was doing is taking my little plastic tool and just kind of shoving the cable up into here. making sure it's all the way up inside that headliner, just real carefully, just pushing it up into there. Okay, well, to install our front dash cam, it's pretty straightforward. We've got 3 wires coming out of it right here. We've got a GPS wire, which I won't be using, so I'm just gonna kind of tuck that in here. We've got a rear dash cam, which is that wire we just put in, so we'll go ahead and connect that together. Okay, and then we're going to connect our power cable to the one from our Y cable here. We'll just plug this in. Okay. And try to get these cables organized as best we can, and then we'll try to get this cover plate lined up onto here. Okay, there was a lot of back and forth there. I apologize for not really filming it real time, but it was just a difficult thing. What I would suggest doing, and what ended up working for me, is have all these cables spilled out, you know, just spilled out of here, so that they're not like back in here and they're not in the way. Then obviously you want to get both sides on, and you want them flush to the windshield, because there's the clips down here, and then of course you have those red clips up in here. You know, press everything in to where it's lined up properly on both sides of the clips, and then you take your hands and then you can on both sides lift up in this way and get those clips cinched in. If you feel major resistance, stop, don't break anything, and just try to get everything realigned, and it should end up pushing back all the way up in there to where now my hand can't get up. You know, the casing is right next to the headliner here. And then of course, with the cords all spilled out, that helps to, you know, not have anything stick in the way, get in the way of the tabs or anything. But then you can then tuck them all back in up here and get them all kind of situated nice up there, and then we can take our cover plate and then snap that in. So that's how I ended up getting it done. And there's a final shot with the cover plate. Looks really good. Okay, so now we're up here. We've gotten our rear dash cam cable all the way to the corner of the driver's side, and now we want to work it around here. So for the most part, what you'll see in, you know, going forward is mostly what we're going to do is simply, you know, tuck the cable down in under the headliner. But there's one exception to that, and this is the hard part here. Notice this is an airbag. This is the side curtain airbag. What I don't want to do is run it around here and potentially impede the deployment of this side airbag right here. So we have to spend a little more time right here to make sure we get this right so that it's safe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my hand, I'm going to pull back and find the edge of the side of this here and get my hands in there. And I'm going to take my body tool and try to get around into here. Just be real careful. Don't put a lot of pressure on there. This can dent in. But what we want to do, there's a clip right about here, and we want to give it a nice hard tug and pull this little A-pillar thing down. So let's go ahead and do that. Notice I pulled it out, and now I can actually see this airbag system. So let me show you that. So here is the clip that I pulled out. Now, when we put it back in, this is a weird design here, but we'll have to kind of feed this back in. Notice, see how I pushed it back in? We'll have to feed that back in so we can push it all the way in there. But now that it's out, what we're gonna do is we're gonna run our cable back around under. So notice here's the airbag here. We wanna go underneath it right here. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, so we got the airbag curtain all put back in place. I kind of peeled down the rubber here on our door, and I started feeding the cable up under the headliner up right here. So what we're going to do now is just continue on with that. I'll go ahead and open the door up, and we'll continue to pull back on this rubber seal and get it shoved up in and around the headliner here. Okay, we got another side curtain airbag here. Gotta love these safety features. Again, I didn't want to just wrap the cable right here because the airbag would hit it when it deployed, so I had to make sure I'm behind it. So I grabbed this nice and tight and gave it a hard tug, and you see that there's this red tab right there. That's what goes into there. Well, it's hard to see because I don't have great lighting, but what I was able to do is run my cable. You can give this a good amount of tug because it's quite soft plastic and it's pretty supple. So what I did was I got my hand in behind there. That airbag's the actual red thing, you know, with this little white harness there. I was actually able to get my hand in and push that cable through there and then just have it come right out the top here. So it is behind the airbag. So now I can press my seal back on and get that all pulled through, and we'll be beyond that airbag. That should be our last airbag right there. So notice we've got our cable at this point past our second pillar right there, and I'm just gonna let it sit there for a moment. What we're gonna do is we're gonna come back to our trunk here, locate this plug right here. What you do, you can twist this up and then pull it out, and it will reveal a 10mm bolt. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that 10mm bolt, and that will loosen this gray panel so that we can start loosening this panel just a little bit, just so we can carefully tuck everything in without too much friction. I haven't completely figured out where I want to position the rear camera, but my guess is I'm going to want to probably mount it to the windshield, probably right here. And what that means is what we probably want to do is we probably want to take our cable and run it up into our headliner in here and fish it potentially up through this wiring harness, and then that goes inside of the trunk area here. Now what you could do is you could take your body tool, and from the bottom, in fact you can see a little area where you can put it in there, and you can pop this out pretty easily. So it pops out with those clips right there. Just make sure the top things don't get hurt. But notice that we have wiring and a big void in here that we can run our cable, all of our excess cable, as well as join in our cable for the rear view camera into there. So I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get this cable fished up through there. So I'm going to focus in on this connector right here where some wiring goes up into here, and try to see if I can get my wire to go in through there. The first thing I did was I took a piece of just scrap wire, like a 2-foot piece of wire, and I think what I'm going to do is use this as a pull wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull this grommet out here. You can use your plastic tool to help. So pull that out. You can see that, yeah, there's a bunch of wiring in there. And then from this side, we're going to pull it out as well. actually want to do is just get this rubber boot more or less off and not really tamper with this white plastic thing. So I'm going to get my little scrap pull wire and I'm going to pull this down and get it as horizontal as I can, and be real careful. You can kind of feel around where there's voids, right? So you don't want to poke your wire through any of the rubber here. Just kind of carefully feed it into here though. All right, we got our pull wire through. That was not fun. Now I'm going to try to get my pull wire down through this hole where the grommet is, and then out here where the end of the headliner is. All right, there we have it. Here's our pull wire. Now what I'm going to do is take some electrical tape and I'm going to tape our pull wire to the end of our connection wire, and the hope there is that then I can just pull it all the way through here. Easier said than done. Let's see how it goes. Okay, well, that was not the easiest thing to do, but I was able to get the cord pulled all the way in and up here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to feed it up this harness and pull it all the way up into here. And then I'll go ahead, and this tool will help out with that, is I'll stretch this rubber boot back over this plastic piece here and shove this back in on both sides. You just make sure this grommet is shoved all the way back into the hole here. All right, well, now that I have my cable all in through here and my rubber grommets all put back in place, I'm just going to kind of tuck it back in here, and then we're going to work on determining where the position of the rear camera is going to be, and then we can finish hooking that back up later. I'm going to take a quick pause on the installation of the rear camera, and we're going to go ahead and install the smartphone app because I want to make sure that the hardware overall is working first of all, and it'll also help me maybe determine where I want to place the rear camera on my rear windshield. So the first thing we're going to do is turn the page, and there's a QR code on the inside of the packet there. If we scan that, that'll take us to the Google Play Store so we can download the app. So this is what the app looks like for the Android on Google Play. It's called SkyCamm with 2 M's, and there's the icon, and I'm going to go ahead and install it. Once the SkyCamm app is installed and I opened it and just did all the acknowledgements of the security settings, it brings me to this screen here which says to add a camera. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add Camera. Okay, so now I've moved into the car, and the next screen here is to tell me I need to install the camera and power it on. Well, I've already installed it, and I've got the ignition on in the car, so the camera should be powered up. Then it says to select the Wi-Fi network, and so we're going to connect to the Wi-Fi. Now this camera produces its own Wi-Fi network, and it's not connected to the internet or anything. It's just for the purposes of being able to connect your smartphone directly to the camera to manipulate settings and to download video clips. So it takes me to my Wi-Fi screen, and according to this booklet, the Wi-Fi network should be this one right here, which says Wi-Fi E90 whatever. So we'll go ahead and connect to that. The default password is listed in the pamphlet as 1234567 And as soon as I get into this the first time, I can go ahead and change that. That way no one else can hack into my camera. So after connecting to the camera's Wi-Fi, we'll go ahead and go back to the SkyCamm app. And we'll wait a few minutes for it to recognize it. And once it recognizes the camera, it should send you to this screen. Now notice I have a warning message that I don't have an SD card in there. It's not formatted. So I'm going to go ahead and insert the SD card and we'll go ahead and get that formatted. Okay, so once I inserted the SD card, I'm going to go ahead and click the settings, and we're going to go ahead and find the setting to format that. And we'll go ahead and format that SD card, and we'll be ready to start recording. All right, well now I can see, after I remove the sticker off the lens, now I can see the front view of the recording. So cool. Looks like everything's working so far. Now to test the rear dash cam, I affixed it to the rear window with a little bit of painter's tape just to test the placement of it, and then I plugged it in. Then I went back to the SkyCamm app and I clicked on the flip camera button so I can see what was coming out of the rear camera, and it looked good to me. Okay, so to finish the rear installation, I simply mounted the rear camera with the appropriate double stick tape pad, and then I cleaned up the wiring inside of here by just cinching up the additional wiring with a wire tie. And then finally I just replaced that back panel. Now I did make one modification to the panel, and this may be a little controversial for this video here. I went ahead and drilled like a 3/4 inch hole, put a grommet in there, and I ran the cable in through that. Now you may not want to do it this way. You might just squeeze your cable to come out the side there, but I decided to do it that way because, worst case scenario, if I ever want to put it back to stock, I just replace that panel. But I think that looks pretty clean, so I'll go with that. All right, now that everything is installed and configured, let's go ahead and go for a drive. You might notice that the audio sounds a little bit different right now, and that's because I'm using the audio that's exported from the actual microphone in the unit. I've got the front camera set to 4K, the rear camera set to the default 1080p, and I'll show you the 4K version. And one thing you want to do when you're evaluating the output of these dash cams is you want to look at street signs when you looking at it. And if you can make out the print on the street signs or on the mailbox addresses, then you know that it's a good quality camera. Now, keep in mind also that you could be watching this video itself on a lower resolution because of the streaming service. So if you want to just make sure that the YouTube settings on your YouTube player are on 4K, you'll get the greatest resolution in terms of the video itself. These dash cams are real important because not only can you capture road rage incidents, an accident that's happening, whether it's on the road or off the road, you can even keep it recording by keeping at least your accessory on in the car while you have a traffic stop, and you can record at least the audio of a traffic stop, which may help with any kind of issues that you might have, and then at least you know you have your own documentation of that. All right, well, that about does it. Now you know how to install the Mangoal OEM dash cam setup in a Toyota Highlander, and maybe even other cars as well. Links to the product and everything I talked about is in the video description. And if you like DIY automotive and home content like this, then please subscribe to my channel. And until the next video, I'll talk to you later.